Welcome to Ignite Intimacy, a podcast exploring intimacy, romantic relationships, sexuality, and everything that relates to these hot topics. We're going in. Are you ready? This is your host, Laura Aisha. Let's do this. Hello, Ignite Intimacy community. This is Miss Laura Aisha, and I am so pumped up today. I am filled with excitement and anticipation, and just my heart and my lips are smiling big, and this is awesome. We have one of my dearest, most favorite sistren on the line today. This is another Buffalo babe on the call with us that I'm so excited to introduce you to, because this human being is a powerhouse in this world. She's a creative, she's a writer, she's an advocate, activist, just incredible human being. And we've been trying to link up and record an episode for Ignite Intimacy for a long time. And we have finally, the stars have aligned during Mercury retrograde. Go figure.
Who knew?
I know. Well, we knew. What's up, Morgen Love?
Hi, Mama. I'm so glad to be here with you. I've definitely been anticipating this moment for quite a while too. So I'm stoked that we get to do this.
Awesome. Well, so I have had the pleasure of witnessing your journey and your expansion and contraction and ebbs and flows and highs and lows and everything in between. And what an honor to be your friend and trod this path with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we've known each other for quite a long time. And that's having people in your life that have gotten to see the evolution of you and you stepping into the fullest expression of yourself is pretty fucking special. It's vulnerable, it's vulnerable to be witnessed in that way. And I'm so glad to have known you for so long. Those are those connections I have, especially with other women in my life who I've known for 10 years plus. It's really special. It's really, yeah.
Yeah. And you have some really, really powerful women in your life.
Oh,
you've curated well.
Yes. I feel really, really fortunate and blessed to have women in my life who are so powerful and just adding so much to this world and saying so many things out of their mouths that need to be said and standing up and showing up and speaking out. And it is really fucking special. It's a powerful reflection for me, and it helps me to feel strong to also do those things and to keep doing them. And you are definitely one of those people for sure.
Oh yeah. I'm grateful to be one of those people. Oh my gosh. So Ignite Intimacy community, you are in for a real treat today. I've been wanting to do more of these kinds of episodes. We did one with Diana in Germany early on in the podcast. And I wonder what episode that was. I'm going to look it up while I'm talking here. But basically, I have been wanting to have more people on the podcast who are actually writers and who are creating amazing written work in the areas of sex and intimacy and sexuality. And Diana Joyce, we had her on, and she actually read a blog post of hers that was just so hot. It's episode number 3. You got to check that one out. And so I am super juiced and excited that we have another brilliant word word empress on the line with us today. Morgen is just a brilliant writer, and also her spoken word is just beautiful and eloquent and detailed, and it takes you on a journey. So I've been watching Morgen do more writing through the years on social media, and if you don't follow her, you have to. We're going to include her links in the show notes, but just so everybody can, even like while they're listening, pull you up on Instagram or Facebook. What do you want to share as far as your links right now?
Great. So my Instagram right now that I do my like personal sex and pussy chat blog on is at daddy, DADDIE .dearest. And that is also my DJ name. So I play music, mostly music for people to take their, can follow me there for that as well. But I also use that space as kind of an open forum to talk about sex and pussies and patriarchy and all sorts of stuff. So
yeah,
please follow me there.
Yes. So daddy.dearest. And what Morgen was saying when for some reason the line just literally went totally blank is that she is a DJ and she plays generally music for people to take their clothes off to. And that is the very important part that we missed when the line went blank.
So if you need some sex tunes, you can also access me on Instagram, and all of my links for how to find my mixes and where I'll be playing music are always posted there as well. So that's kind of the hub for everything that I'm doing creatively at the moment.
Awesome. Well, we have got a couple of pieces that Morgen has written. She's going to read a piece and then we'll discuss it. And this first piece is one of my favorites. Holla, girlfriend. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So let's start off with this first piece. And this one is called Clitoris Is Not a DJ Booth.
It's not. It's really not. So, right. So some of what I write is like really rich and serious, and some of what I write is like total snark. So here we go. The clitoris is not a DJ booth. Please relax. Seriously, people, let's take it down a notch. That DMC championship turntablism technique is not a one-size-fits-all surefire way to pleasure those of us who have clits. I mean, to be honest, I don't know anyone who likes that, but I certainly don't want to yuck anyone's yum. And if there are cis women out there who truly enjoy the way that feels, then go ahead and get after it. But for the rest of us, which is so many of us, please take your sweet time. It is so nourishing, not to mention sexy as fuck, when the quality of someone's touch reflects presence and attuned listening. Pussy stroking is an art. Slow down. Take time to arouse all the senses. Listen to what your partner really wants. Savor, tease, make it a prayer. You will be glad you did. Hashtag clitorisy.
Yes.
So.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, let's.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, this is interesting, and it is it's so important. It's like I can imagine that it could be like pretty stressful being a guy when it comes. Like some guys are just gifted, right? Like, and I'm speaking more from more of a heterosexual angle because I'm mostly engaged with men sexually,
for sure,
right?
For sure.
So, but it applies to anyone, right? But it's like pleasing a woman, it's an art.
It is. It is. And no two pussies are the same. And I mean, if we're being like totally on point here, right? No two cocks are the same either. Like we sometimes get this very limited idea of technique or how to pleasure a person, when some people are so much more sensitive than others. Some people prefer more pressure or less. Some people enjoy to be teased for very long periods of time before you go any further. And that's for people who have any kind of genitals. But I'm speaking solely as a person who has a pussy, and basing what I'm saying off of information that I have collected over the years through my
research.
Yes, my unofficial field research. And that my unofficial field research comes from both conversations, very candid conversations I've had with hundreds of women at this point, and also sex that I've had with women, and learning that really there are so many different ways to touch a person, and our anatomy it's all different, and the same techniques that work on one person aren't necessarily the thing that's going to give the most pleasure possible to the next person. Now, that doesn't mean that those techniques might not work at all. It doesn't mean that you might not be able to get that person to orgasm, because those things might happen. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to give them the most pleasure possible. Like, right? If it could be like, because it could be good, and it could be like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, I'm probably going to be able to get to orgasm at some point, but if it could be even more enjoyable, right? If you could have that experience that you're sharing with somebody be the most pleasurable type of experience possible, what would be required? How would it be necessary for that person to touch you in order to make that happen? That's the shit I'm really interested in. And what I've found is that the only ways that that's really, really possible is to communicate. Like, and yes, we communicate with our bodies. We can send signals with our bodies, or how we are expressing our pleasure through our moans. But when we just use our mouth words, it can be a lot easier to get the desired effect. And some people have trouble communicating with their words. Some of us have trouble just communicating with our bodies. Some of us have tried really hard to communicate what we want and what is the most pleasurable with our bodies, and still aren't getting the desired effect. Right? And in my own personal experience, and I know this isn't just my own experience, because I have talked with so many other people who have pussies about this exact thing. I know that this is a collective experience. But even just speaking from my own experiences with pleasure and being touched, unless I am really in a space where I feel that I'm going to be received when I communicate with a person, and I'm using my words, and I know that they're interested in giving me the most pleasure possible, I will sometimes rely on communicating with my body, and often don't get the desired effect, because I know my body so well. I know my body so well. I know my pussy so well, and I know how to get myself to the point where I am on fire in ways that very few other people have ever been able to bring that out of me, because my pleasure is my pleasure. And it's amazing when someone else can ignite me in those ways. But I would love to know that there is a safe container in which that person is hungry to understand how to ignite my body in those ways. Yes. and willing to just go, like, that is sexy beyond anything. And I love that too. Like, when my partners, whether they're male or female, have trusted me enough to share with me the things that really get them off, or like very specific ways that they want to be touched. That is so hot to me. Like, yes, tell me tell me exactly what that is. Like, I want this to be as hot for you as it can possibly be. And if that means you telling me what you need and what you want in that moment, like, sign me the fuck up. Where do I sign up for that task? I am up for that task. I am available for that. And like, I want to know that my lovers are also available for that, because why wouldn't you want to give somebody the most pleasure possible that you are engaged with in a sexual experience, right? Like, that is where the nectar lives for me personally. And I made that post because I've had so many women, friends, cis women friends, come to me and be like, what is happening? What is happening out here with these grown adult men? And I was like, and this is, of course, let's be real. It's not all men, not all the time. But God, sex education is such a joke most of the time. And the sources that we rely on to get our information just give us this really limited idea of how to pleasure anyone. And it's like, that's not how you do it. And I had women friends to come to me and be like, I had this experience. And I was like, who taught you that? Like, what? No, like, that's not an okay way to touch a clit. And it's unfortunately so common that these are experiences they're experiences that we're having, they're conversations that we're having. And we can't really get to the point in our evolution as sexual beings that we don't have to be going to our women friends and saying, I can't believe this guy was just literally flicking the bean, like flicking, like, no, that's not how you do it. Like punching the button or just scratching the record. Like, no, baby, that's not. And it's like, we can get to the point in our evolution as sexual beings where these are not the experiences we're having if there's more and better information out there that people are sharing about what pleasure really can look like and feel like when it's really present and really connected, and when it involves communication. And yeah, so I like to talk about that in terms that, are like deep and rich and serious. And also I just like to say some confrontational shit on the internet sometimes.
Yeah, girl. Well, talk about it. I'm like, yes, thank you. And for all the people listening, to this, if you play with pussies, just let's communicate, let's like ask each other, like, what do you really like? And what about asking each other before you ever even are in a bedroom or in taking clothes off or anything like that? Like, what about having conversation about sex before you are even going to touch each other?
Yes. And that is such you hit the nail on the head there big time, because like,
no pun intended.
I love when people talk to me when I'm in a sexual situation, but I also love to have more clarity around what we're getting ourselves into before we even step into that space. Because sometimes that can be a really tender and vulnerable place for people to go, whether it's the person who's feeling inspired to say something in the moment, right? You don't know how that's going to land. You don't know how that person is going to react. And then for the person who's receiving that information, like, if it doesn't land in a way that you were ready for, or if it does bring up something for you that's hard, like, it can definitely make the moment a little challenging and awkward. And it just depends really on where you're at. And to have those conversations beforehand can take a lot of the charge out of it for both people involved. And I mean, I just talk about sex basically all the time with everyone. So, but not everybody is like that, you know, like this is part of what I do as my career path and the space that I occupy in the world. So these conversations are very common for me. And it's part of why it's part of why I wind up with so much information. I'm an information gatherer, and people feel safe to share those stories with me and share those parts of themselves with me, whether we're lovers or just friends. But when you don't necessarily know somebody as well, or know if it's safe to open up in that way, doing it in the bedroom can be the most vulnerable place to go for it.
Oh, totally.
You're like, oh, fuck, did I say the wrong thing? Oh, but that was good for a second, and now it's weird. Did I make it weird? Am I going to make it weird? You can just fucking psych yourself out, and it's just not cute. So, to be able to, and I think it's hot to have those conversations with somebody that you're maybe going to be sexually intimate with, like you're going down that road, but you haven't crossed a certain threshold with, like, to talk about that stuff. Is that, for me, that's also part of what turns me on, like people's ability to articulate desire is hot to me. And I really encourage people to have these conversations before they get in the bedroom. Talk with your partners about what really gets them off. Or like, so the other night I went on a date, and I was talking to this person and about pleasure, but not even specifically sexual pleasure. And the question that I asked was, what is the most physically, not sexually, physically pleasurable experience that you have ever had? And of course, I mean, for most of us, we're going to have a lot of things that we think of, but I was like, just off the top of the dome, first thing that you can think of. And it was not like the thing that he shared was not a sexual experience at all, right? Because pleasure it's beyond, it's this like delicious, rich sensory landscape. And when we can tap into all of those levels and then bring that into our sexual experiences with people, that like it next levels what we're capable of feeling on our pleasure levels. And so, right, talking with people even about things like that can get you into deeper spaces of conversation about, when you are in sexual situations, how to go into that really sensory space and next level what your pleasure experience is with that person. Yeah.
I love that. That is so powerful. Yes. Yeah. All right. I'm feeling the next piece here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And this is the no.
So I actually,
or are you feeling something different?
Like, maybe we go to the next one. I can talk. Yeah. I mean, we can talk about the consent piece for sure. I was just feeling like we're kind of on this tip about like sensory experience and pleasure and deliciousness, and sharing that piece that's like kind of poetic. I was feeling a little spark to do that, but it's up to you. You're the driver of the ship. So where do you go next?
I think we're going to hold that one till the end.
Okay, great.
I think we're gonna do a mic drop at the end with that one. So we're just gonna build some anticipation for you all. You have to wait till the end for this hot, sexy piece of poetry.
Okay, perfect. I feel that. That's a good call. Cool. So yeah, this next piece is it's about consent, which is another thing that I talk about and I write about a lot. And I found this amazing image on the internet of a piece of street art that says, "No does not mean convince me," and that really struck a chord for me on a lot of levels. So I wrote about it, and I said, "It is fucking mind-boggling how little we are taught about boundaries and consent as young people. Many of us, regardless of gender, grew up either not knowing how to create and maintain boundaries, or not knowing how to respect the boundaries of others, or a combination of both. And consent wasn't even a word in the vocabulary of our sex education classes. I have personally had my no ignored and pushed by men and by women, both sexually and in other facets of life. At times, I've struggled to stand fiercely as I communicate what is okay and what is not, because of how much we are taught to be apologetic for our no. In the past, I have even struggled to identify my yes and my no with crystal clarity. And I bet at some point in time, I unintentionally overstep the boundaries of others. Because in a sexual culture riddled with patriarchal programming and horrible sex education, it is almost impossible not to have been on both sides of this equation at some point. It is important to do better, for all of us to do better. It is important to recognize the ways we have played into this program and do the work to change it. It is important to clearly identify our yes and no and get comfortable in speaking it. It is important to get really comfortable with the no's of others and stop trying to push, convince, or coerce for more than what is being offered. And it is important to examine the entitlement that fuels that kind of behavior, because it's just flat out wrong to ignore the no. And because there is nothing more delicious than when the yes is 100% between sovereign beings treating one another with respect. Yeah.
Mm. Yep.
Yeah. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
You know, like we really, we are given very, very poor resources, with which to navigate sexuality. Our education's failed most of us. I mean, for me, my experience going to public schools, they did the best they could, but yikes. I mean, it was like somebody who was a quote unquote health teacher, who could not have been more awkward about talking to teenagers about sex, who was like, okay, this is a penis and this is a vagina. And this is how you get pregnant. This is a condom. AIDS will kill you. Now go out there and probably don't have sex because it'll be bad and wrong and might get you sick or pregnant. So try not to have it for as long as possible. But when you do, use a condom. Like that was like that was the gist of our sex education. And then there's other people who, you know, they got it on like the religious end of the spectrum. And geez, I mean, it's a bad joke at best, and it's damaging religious indoctrination at worst. So any way you slice it, we probably, like, if you grew up when I did, I was a teenager in the 90s, and so, you know, there were some initiatives around condoms big time during that time period. But as far as like the really important shit, in my opinion, about sex education, if we're talking about more than that, it's just like about anatomy and slapping a condom on it. Like we need to get real serious about talking about consent on all levels.
Oh yeah.
Talking about sexism and patriarchy and how they affect sex between all people, especially sex between men and women. And we need to get really serious about talking about trauma, and rape culture on deeper levels than just like, this is the legal definition of rape. Like it has to go into all things and go into the real nitty gritty if we think that we're going to be having healthy sexual experiences. And, you know, I grew up in such a way that I didn't have a good grasp on my own personal boundaries. I didn't know that I could even really have boundaries, for a lot of different reasons that we don't even have to go into because it's inconsequential. And a lot of us grow up in those situations, whether it's because of, you know, programming and things that we're told, based on traditional gender roles, or if there was any type of abuse in the household, you name it. There are a lot of ways that we grow up not understanding how to set boundaries and maintain them, or that we can even have them. And that definitely carries with us into our sexual experiences. And I can look back on so many experiences I had as a younger person where I I didn't communicate in ways that I now I would. But it took a lot of hard learning to get to the point where I am now in my ability to use my voice. And I'm not even saying I'm an expert at this. I still find myself in moments where I'm like, oh, I could have said a thing there, and or I could have said this in a different way, or in retrospect, if I had this to do over, I would do it differently in this way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so much stronger in my voice and clearer than ever before in my life. But, I think especially for those of us who grow up with, who grow up socialized feminine. And when I say that, I don't actually mean that, specifically around cis women, because there are people who have grown up socialized female who were born with male genitalia.
Mm-hmm.
Want to be clear that I'm also including that when we are socialized in certain ways, it's not necessarily about our genitals. But when we do grow up with that socialization and these very specific, like gendered identity things that are projected onto us, again, regardless of what genitalia we have, it can be really challenging for us to break out of that programming in those stories. And for those of us socialized female, we are taught so much to be nice, to be polite,
Mm-hmm.
to act nice, to apologize for something as simple as a no, right? That should not be an apology. No is not an apology, right? My no is an apology. My no is my no, because I am a sovereign being, and because my body belongs to me, and my personal space belongs to me, and my pussy belongs to me. But we are not given a foundation, most of us, to really believe that deeply in our, like, on a cellular level. Like, everything else in our society is constantly telling us that our bodies actually belong to other people. And I'm actually writing a piece about that right now. That's a deeper conversation for another day.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to understand that. And yeah, and I know, and it's not, when we talk about this, sometimes people are like, oh, well, men will say, oh, well, I've had women touch me non-consensually too. And it's like, well, yeah, totally. Because we live, I've had women touch me. No, actually, the time that I felt the most violated ever, just in a like public space, in an experience that I had with another person where I was being touched non-consensually, was actually with a woman.
Wow.
Right. So anytime women say something, I notice on the internet about, consent and their experiences with men get really fired up over, like, oh, well, I've had women do this to me too. So I don't want to discredit or discount those experiences, because those things definitely happen. And I am 100% positive of the fact that I have been that person as well. It's not a person that I currently am, but I have made mistakes around consent too, because it's just not something that we're taught. But it is so common for women, right? It does happen to men, but it is so common for women that those conversations really need to be in the spotlight, in my opinion, because we are taught that our bodies are property. Taught that our bodies are property, and that is not something that men are taught in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm just thinking about the couple of instances that I've had recently with saying no, and having to really say no.
Yeah.
And then have the other person look at me like, oh, sorry. It's like, no, motherfucker. I just fucking said no. I said no.
It's like, I thought your no meant yes. No, it
Yeah, no.
means no.
Yeah, it actually means no. It actually means like, it's time for you to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I actually, I just ended, I was dating this guy and I was like, I'm not into this, you know, like, after our last date, I'm not feeling it. And, you know, I guess for me, I'm like, how much do I share about, like, I didn't feel safe with you.
Yeah.
You know, like, do I share that? Do I not share that? I guess I'm not sure. Like, I even, you know, called someone, was like, how do I deal with this? Like, how do I even tell him that I'm not in, because I don't believe in disappearing. I think that's shitty.
Yeah, it is.
And I think it's rude. And I just don't believe in just disappearing. Yeah. I believe that people deserve to have at least like a thank you. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just, you know, I'm thinking about a couple of instances recently where it was like men much bigger and stronger than me, like had my hand in their hand and I'm saying, no, where do you think you're taking me? And they grab my hand firmer and keep pulling me somewhere. Like I had to like literally like yank my hand out of both of these. This was two totally separate instances. And I'm like, what are you not getting? Why would you ever try to pull someone, you know, somewhere where they're saying, where are you taking me? No, you know? And, so in my earlier years, there were things that I did just to avoid any trouble.
Yeah.
'Cause I was scared.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And definitely like times when I've been like really, I never use this term, but it's what wants to come out. Butt hurt.
I'm sorry. I love that
I
term.
know you do. Maybe that's why it's coming up. But, you know, like butt hurt about someone not wanting to be sexual with me. And it's funny because I'm just sitting here thinking about this because I haven't had a long-term relationship in a very long time.
Yeah.
It's something I really want. I want to have a partner, and it's work that I'm doing to like clear my own blocks to receiving that. But, you know, I'm thinking like, wow, like, gosh, like what happens when you are just like really hot and your partner is totally not down? Like they're like so not in the space to pleasure you or have pleasure with you or whatever, you know, like, what do you do then?
Yeah. I mean, and it's tricky because like when you are in long-term partnerships with people, you know, you spend a lot of time together and sometimes a person isn't going to be in that space for one reason or another. And, I've experienced that in long-term partnerships. And I mean, my answer to anything pleasure related anymore is like, I just masturbate. Oh, somebody's not about it. Like, cool. I'm just going to masturbate because I really, really like masturbating.
Well, okay. So Sunday I went to brunch with a girlfriend in New York, and I'm like, I open up Instagram and like the picture, let's go to church, or like
Yes.
that you posted. Daddy.dearest on Instagram. Okay.
And it's daddy, DADDIE. So, you know, it's like Barbie, but daddy.
Yeah. Daddy.dearest on Instagram. And like the first image on my screen, I showed it to my girlfriend. I'm like, look at my girl. That's my girl right there. Yeah. It was awesome. Yes. It was not an image of Morgen Love. It was a drawn image. It was half an image.
Line drawing.
Yeah. Beautiful line drawing. Anyways, Daddy, DADDIE.dearest. Check it out. Instagram. Yes. Okay. So I'm just thinking, how do you feel about moving to a next piece?
Yeah, we can do that. I feel like there's some more richness around. I mean, but I feel like it's probably a conversation for another day, just around like long-term intimacy with people and what just came up there around like consent inside of long-term partnerships and what happens when one person is feeling sexually inclined and the other one isn't, how to navigate those spaces. But I feel like that's a whole other tangent for like another day and another piece.
Great.
But
Yeah,
I just
we'll do that.
Mark that because there's definitely some like real content in there. But we can definitely move on to another piece.
Okay. So I'm thinking the superpower.
Oh gosh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we'll wrap her up with the poem.
Okay, perfect. Here we go. Vagina Vision, a superpower honed through attentive listening to the one true voice of pussy. To develop vagina vision, one must slay many personal demons, deconstruct the internalized imprints of oppressive power structures, overcome past traumas, develop deep trust in one's intuition, and dodge distractions that could derail your life plan or tax your relationship to your self-worth. With vagina vision comes new keys to unlock parts of your queendom that were previously hidden, and bountiful rewards, including, but not limited to, orgasmic manifestation magic, finely tuned discernment / X-ray fuckery vision, new clarity about what you truly want out of life, love, and sex, and how to get it, and the knowledge that your pussy is fire and therefore should be regarded and honored as such. Vagina vision is a gift that comes only as a result of learning from our past experiences and mistakes. So do not be too hard on yourself if you are currently being forged in the fire of your own hard lessons or decisions that you can look back on and say, well, that definitely wasn't the smartest thing I've ever done. Forgiveness, real talk. You know that it's like I say that and like exactly what that means in your own life. Forgiveness of self is crucial in this process. Be kind to yourself on all levels and definitely masturbate a lot. You are well on your way to becoming a pussified superhero, so just power onward and stay the course, B. The fruits of your labor pains are definitely worth it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I love this one.
Vagina vision.
It's everything.
It is.
It is everything. I mean, human beings are birthed from the vaginal canal.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's everything there. It's like the universe.
It is. I mean, there's so much wisdom possessed in our pussies and in our wombs. And I think that it can be really easy to shut down the inner voice that comes from that part of us. And that's definitely, I'm writing this. What I wrote there is written from my own experience. It's written from my life experience of going through all of those things, and realizing the ways that I was failed around sex education, realizing the ways that I have been traumatized in certain ways around sexuality, and doing work around unpacking that stuff and healing that stuff, realizing that the mistakes that I've made as a result of my poor sex education and the ways that those things affected me, realizing the ways that trauma from childhood played out in other parts of my life inside of sexual relationships, which essentially I call it re-traumatizing, right? Because we experience these traumas in our adult lives, regardless of whether they're sexual trauma or other types of trauma in relating with other people that oftentimes have deeper roots in trauma that we experienced in childhood. And so looking at all of that stuff and like really examining that and seeing the ways that inside of relatedness with people and sex with partners and romance, ways that certain patterns have played out in my life that I'm actively engaged in not continuing, and that it takes a lot of work to get there. And a big part of that for me is listening more deeply than ever before to the wisdom of my womb and the wisdom of my pussy and what it tells me. And sometimes what that means, like I'm a pretty impulsive person. I'm just gonna I'm gonna go ahead and own that. Like there were times in my life where I was like, I'm impulsive. What are you talking about? I'm a planner. Like, no, I'm an Aries. Okay, I'm an Aries, and I was like, my zodiac sign does not define me. Like, no, of course it doesn't. However, there are some things that are fucking true about me that I didn't want to admit that I now am in ownership of. One of those is that I can be pretty fucking impulsive. And, when something feels a type of way, and by a type of way, I mean like a good type of way or a yummy type of way or a sexy type of way, I'm like, ooh, like, yeah, let's explore that. Right. But like, I didn't always give myself time to really drop in with the deeper wisdom that lives in like the deep core of my pussy chakra. Like I didn't like always really, really listen. Even though I thought like, and I can even say at other points in time in my life, I thought I was listening, but I thought a lot of other stuff in the way. There was a lot of stuff clouding my ability to hear that voice as clearly as I can hear it now. And a lot of that comes into like, the piece about consent that I wrote, the clarity around our yes and our no. Like I access a lot of that now too, through like deep listening to my womb and meditations with my womb and my pussy and sex meditations, sex magic meditations that I do with self when I'm in a self-pleasure space. And those are things that are definitely more recent practices in my life in the last few years. And it's really helped me to change some things in my life that I saw myself in a cycle of re-stimulation of past trauma, I guess is the best way I can describe that. Because of ways that I was engaging with sex or engaging with relationships with men that were taxing my relationship to my self-worth. And I'm just not interested in that. And I see, in my information collecting and my conversations I've had with so many women, I often hear these same things reflected, which is why like I can write from my own personal experience, but also from that collective voice. I know that this is something that a lot of women have experienced. And unfortunately, in the modern society that we live in, I think there are just a lot of ways that we've become disconnected from the wisdom of our wombs, the wisdom of our pussies, the wisdom of our heritage, and the wisdom of the people with pussies who came before us, and the people with pussies who are so far back in our ancestry that they were burned as witches for their wisdom, like there's something so important, I think, about reconnecting to that part of us. And for me, that means not being as impulsive, which takes real fucking dedication, but like,
oh,
yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Go ahead.
So I'm curious because I thought when you were talking about, just like the wisdom and the power and the what we get from our pussies, from our wombs. I mean, it's Mama Gina talks a lot about that. And I was just recently told about the witches and the brooms. Do you know about the broomstick?
Oh, yes, baby. Oh, that is.
I was like, dang, those witches are brilliant.
Bit of history right there. Go ahead, share it if there's people out there that haven't heard this little tidbit of information.
Okay,
yet.
so
unless you've already talked about it.
I haven't. No, we haven't yet, and we should probably do an episode on this as well. But
right, that's like a whole episode.
Yeah, that totally is. But it's like it's like real vagina magic. Okay, so basically, what I was told, and it was just a 2-second conversation, is that witches, we have, these pictures of witches riding on broomsticks and flying through the air, is that witches would make this hallucinogenic medicinal brew. And they would, they found out that they could insert it. It was poisonous to drink, but they could actually put it on the tip of a broom and insert it in their vagina. And it wouldn't poison them, but it would give them, it would send them on a journey.
Yes. 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 The application of psychedelic substances with a wooden dildo through the walls of the vagina. That is fucking beautiful to me. Like that is like everything to me on so many levels. I've been a bit of a psychonaut, in my day, and doing my work around sex magic, and I'm just like that. Yes.
I mean, me too. I'm like, holy goddess gracious! Wow, that's like, that's like, okay. So we'll bring
that's some vagina vision right there. Let me tell you,
we're gonna bring that in on a future episode.
Great,
because we need to talk about the herstory and the history of sex and sexuality and where this all came from. So okay, this is just so beautiful, Morgen Love. I'm so happy and honored to be here with you, sharing your work.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored that you asked me to do this. It means so much to me. I really I share my writing a lot, and I've had a lot of people ask me, do I ever speak? Would I ever just speak or do a spoken word thing? And I of course we have these conversations, and I wind up speaking in these very casual types of situations, but I've never done a real speaking thing. And it's something that I'm really interested in getting into more because people have been asking me about it. And so I really just appreciate the opportunity to share my words and my written words in this way. It's really sweet. And to do it with you is really sweet.
Yeah. Well, give thanks. I feel the same way. It's just so amazing. And so let's just make sure everyone knows how to find you online.
Perfect. Yeah. So right now I use my Instagram account as my personal blog. I'll have a new website up soon, but you can find me at Daddie, DADDIE.dearest. And you can find me there for writing and jokes and music and all sorts of other good stuff.
Great. Okay. So we'll include that Instagram link in the show notes. And it has been such a great pleasure and an honor to be here with you, Morgen Love. And I just want to encourage each and every one of us to honor what we have and what we're sharing and what we're giving and what we're receiving. To be in that space of honoring and to be honored. I know that is something that I am opening up more and more to in my own journey of, intimacy and romantic relationships and all of what we're talking about here. It's to really be honored. I want to bow to, and I want to be bowed to.
Yes.
In deep reverence and honor for the being that I am and the being that the other is.
Yeah. that like touches a really deep, deep place in me. That is very, very much about where I'm at in my own life and relating to myself and to my body and to my pussy and just myself as a powerful being and as a queen in this world. And I think it's so important. And it takes work, it takes real work. And I agree with you.
Yes, it's work. It's consistent self-love and self-care, forgiving of self, forgiving of other, being here, being on this powerful journey and to the yes, right?
Yeah.
And so Ignite Intimacy community, you heard it here. Morgen Love at daddy.dearest on Instagram, sharing some of her original work. And we're so grateful that you've tuned in. Please holler at us. Email us at hello@igniteintimacy.com. Let us know what you thought about this episode. Let us know what else you want to hear about. Any questions or comments that you have for Morgen, you can either link her direct on Instagram at daddy.dearest or send us an email and we'll get it to her. So Morgen has got an extra special treat. It's a mic drop. And that's how we're going to close out this session of Ignite Intimacy. So thank you for joining us.
So this is about the yes, right? This is about the deep, deep yes. It is simply not enough for the loving to be tasty. I have learned that tasty will whet the appetite, but tasty will not leave me fed. Tasty can be fun. Tasty can be enjoyable. And there is a lot of tasty to be had out there. But exquisite? Now that is something else altogether. Call it what you want. Decadent, extra, Epicurean, bougie even, the good, the high grade, gourmet as fuck. Yes, that. All of that. The kind of loving that melts on my tongue like the first bite of raw artisanal saffron rose cardamom ice cream fed to me from a faceted crystal chalice while I soak in a bath of lavender with a hint of bergamot in a candlelit room. The kind of loving that speaks to me like music, whispers in my ears and makes me ache in places too deep for me to reach on my own, simply from the beauty of its words. The kind of loving that smells like home, that leaves its scent lingering on my sheets, its taste on my lips, its memory on my skin, causing every hair to stand on end hours later while I'm doing something completely mundane like folding the laundry. The kind of loving that is so bomb that there is just no going back after crossing the threshold into its deliciousness. The kind of loving that is equally as rich as the loving I give to myself. Because it is simply not enough for the loving to be good. It must be fucking exquisite.
Thanks for tuning in to another conversation on the Ignite Intimacy podcast hotline. We love that you choose to spend your time with us. Check us out at igniteintimacy.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a review and a rating. It helps more people know about us. We love to hear from you. You can email us with questions, comments, or suggestions to hello@igniteintimacy.com. And tell your friends. Music was arranged by Jason Pfaff and Mike Corey, and this podcast is produced by yours truly, Laura Aisha. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next one. In the meantime, let your light shine bright and ignite your intimacy.